Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Wholehearted Leadership Podcast. And today I have a very special guest. This is a person that I've known for coming to 4 years, and we've been working together also for the last 3.5 years. So welcome Shawn Hoh to the Wholehearted Leadership Podcast.
Thank you very much, Coen, for having me here today. It's been a long time coming. It's going to be, I think, a very different conversation today than what we have normally. Different chair that I'm in. Different chair that I'm in from where I usually sit doing a podcast. But yes, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, Shawn has been also being the behind the scenes person with helping me with the technical aspects of the podcast. And today he is on my podcast, right?
Yay!
Yay! And remember the last time he was on a podcast was on my first anniversary episode where he was the interviewer and I was the interviewee, right? So today I am turning the tables and I'm going to be interviewing Shawn. And I think it's been a long time coming. Shawn, I am a big fan of yours, as you know. You always live life wholeheartedly, right? So now let's talk a little bit about, let's get back to the formality. First of all, right? So normally we start every podcast episode with this question. What does wholehearted leadership mean to you?
You know, I've heard this question being asked many, many times, but I think this is the first time that I'm seriously considering my answer. I think wholehearted leadership, coming from the perspective of a next-gen leader myself, to embody wholehearted leadership, I think, is to be able to sleep at night with a peaceful heart and a peaceful mind, knowing that I have done everything in my ability to make sure that I have been of actual service to my people.
Service to the people, what do you mean by that? I mean, I get to an extent, but I'd like you to expand on that.
So I think in leadership, right, and especially for what I call new age next gen leadership, I've noticed a lot of patterns where, there is a very different focus now on the people as opposed to getting the job done. And for myself as a leader, I think what's very critical for me is to make sure that the people under my wing, under my care, are actually taken care of. I don't want to be the kind of leader that says, we're a family and we take care of each other, but we don't. And for me, when I say service to the people, right, I mean, how is my actions every day as a leader making the task of someone else's easier than it normally is?
A lot of things to unpack over there, but I think we'll go into that later.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest obstacles from your perspective for leaders leading wholeheartedly?
I'm just going to be really, really honest about this one. I think ego is in the way a lot of leaders who want to but are unable to, or for leaders who just have that barrier in front of them. For me, servant leadership is my definite style. And, when we talk about serving people at that level of service, you have to understand that you're not pulling them along. You're pushing them across.
Ooh, that's interesting one. What do you mean by that?
So, a lot of people think that leadership is about, everyone holding... So I'll give a picture, right? I'm holding a rope, and this rope is extended out into many, many little ropes, and all my people are holding on to it, and I'm pulling them along. Now, that's what a lot of people think that leadership is, right? To take the forefront and, be at the front of everything. But for me, servant leadership is more of, there's no rope at all. But there is me making sure that everyone gets across safely. There is that idea of not being just a Sherpa, but to be the caretaker or the protector of the group, to make sure that everyone is taken care of, and making sure that you can still go the distance. So when we talk about these challenges of what makes it so difficult to be a servant leader, right? I think it's because a lot of ego is in the way, where people cannot bring themselves to go down to the ground to get their hands a little bit dirty, to push the people along when they feel like they have to always be in front. The people know where to go, but they need someone to cover the back as well.
Oh, so powerful, so powerful. So people already know where they want to go.
Yeah.
So they just need an enabler. They just need someone to kind of activate them, like give them the resources.
Yes.
Give them that, I wouldn't say motivation, I would say kind of like that activation, right? Help them to activate what's really inside them.
Yes.
Right, so the idea of the word inspire, right? It's like the etymological root of the word inspire, right, is inspire. Spire means to breathe. Means in. So to inspire means to breathe life into people.
Yes.
And so I think people really have that life, right? Nobody in this world are naturally lazy. nobody in this world is naturally hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so there's this state of like homeostasis. It's like they will just stay in the same state where they are, unless acted upon. But here's the thing: people are actually born with their innate needs, innate drivers. Right, some people have a need for existence, survival. Some people have a need for significance.
Yeah.
Some people have a need for belonging.
Mm-hmm.
We are all driven by our own innate needs, right? And so I think what you're saying is that the leader comes along and and kind of like activate this need in people, or this activate these drivers in people, and then help them along.
So I think a word that I love to use is a leader is meant to be a catalyst
Nice.
for great things to happen, right? Great things happen not because of you, but they happen through you.
Ooh, love it.
And I believe that is the responsibility of a leader. I've led a couple of teams before stepping into where I am today, and one thing I've always realized is that no one's definitely staying where they are forever, and as a leader, knowing that the eventuality is that people come and people go. Your job as a leader, regardless of where you are, is to make sure that when they leave, they are better than when they first came to you.
That's very, very nice. That's very, very nice. No, so Shawn, right, it's like, we'll talk about leadership, servant leadership, you referenced that a lot. And I was listening to this podcast recently by one of my mentor, Simon Bowen, and he was talking to somebody about the shape of leadership.
Ooh.
If you were to draw the shape of a leadership on a diagram, what would the shape be? So very often people think of leadership, the traditional shape would be the pyramid, the upside down pyramid, where the leader is at the apex of the pyramid, is at the top of the pyramid, the top of the food chain. But then, of course, servant leader flips that all around by flipping the pyramid and saying that, hey, the leader is at the bottom. The leader is supporting other people. But there also is a case where situational leadership is like leadership is where you flourish where you're planted.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you lead where you're planted. At the right moment, the right context, you step up and be counted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the idea of situational leadership. So then that kind of space of leadership is like, where do you actually plot that in the diagram?
Right.
So if you were to plot leadership, how would that look like to you?
Does it have to be a shape?
Or maybe if you were to draw it out in terms of diagram or anything, obviously it starts to have a certain shape, right? Or form to it.
Oh, I've never had this question before. I have never actually thought about this before.
That's what I'm here to do, right? I'm here to stump people with what, because we're here to go and dive deeper into it.
If I were to give leadership a shape or form, I don't know. I'm just thinking of water at this point in time. Not because the bottle's staring at me, but Bruce Lee said before, right? You have to be like water, be shapeless, be formless. And I think when it comes to leadership, because there's no one right way of doing it, right? You are who you are. You have your own way of leading. There is no one best way. And there is how you lead, and there is how people need to be led. So I think the best analogy that I can give is you need to be very liquid. You need
Nice.
you need to flow with things. You cannot predict the challenges. The challenges come to you as and when the market demands it, or they just come as they are. And your job is not to question why these challenges are here, but to ponder the question: how do we go about these challenges? How do we serve the people? How do we make sure that everyone's taken care of, in spite of whatever that's happening? So I think to be shapeless and formless is how leadership should look like.
That's very beautiful. It actually speaks very nicely to what you just said around the idea of things happen not because of you but through you, right? It's like water, it makes up 70% of our body, but we don't actually see it, right? So we don't actually give water that significance until you realize that actually our body functions through water, right? The blood circulates around our body that brings oxygen to the rest of our body, otherwise we cannot function.
Exactly.
Right? And then it's kind of like really be that node through which things happen.
Yep.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
That's why I use the word catalyst, right? Because catalysts are activators, like what you said, they are enablers. And, as it happens through you, it doesn't even have to be a very big thing. Sometimes it just needs a little spark. And then things will happen on their own.
Okay, Shawn, I think you're also underselling yourself a little. I personally think that you're an extremely charismatic person. And, it's like you light up the room where you're with your presence. You walk into the room, your presence, your energy, your eloquence, and you're not half bad looking yourself, right?
Thank
so
you very
that's
much.
always a bonus. So it's like you capture attention, you demand attention. I would say you demand, but I would say you capture the attention of people, right? So, but because of the by virtue of your presence, right, people typically will end up gravitating towards you.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, energy flows from a low pressure situation to a high pressure situation, or from a high pressure situation to a low pressure situations.
Yeah.
Right. In science and in physics. So it's almost like, people who are maybe not vibrating at the same high energy as you, they look at you and go, whoa, that's our leader. They kind of gravitate towards you. So have you always been like that in school? And I know that you're in many CCAs, you are CCA leaders and all.
So I think there's a little bit of a backstory here.
A lot. Tell me more.
There's a lot of backstories here, but I think it started when I was in primary 4. So for our listeners who are not sure what age primary 4 is, I was about 10 years old, and I was a prefect in my primary school's prefectorial board. My best friend at the time was up as a candidate to be head prefect. We had this other friend who was also in line. She was already the vice head prefect, so it kind of chains up. And I was just thinking about it. I was like, how come they have and I don't have? Why is it that they are being selected and I'm not? And to me, I genuinely felt that I was not lesser off, or that I was not any different. So one day I went up to the teacher in charge of the prefectorial board, just for anonymity, say let's call him Mr. B, and I said, Mr. B, can I also be a part, of the candidates to be vice head prefect? And that year, the first time in that primary school's history, we had 2 vice head prefects. So I didn't exactly become the head prefect, but I became the vice head prefect next to my best friend. And I suppose that's where I first demonstrated what it was like to have guts, to really just step out and, that's where it started, right? So we talk about nature versus nurture. Have I always been this way? I think if we look at my childhood photos, I think I was a pretty cute kid, but I think that, was just it. For me, being a friendly, bubbly soul to people, that's always been who I am. But I think over the years it evolved. If we can call it charisma, we can call it charm. But I think at the end of the day, when all this, as you say, right, like I light up a room and everything, I think it's because I stick to the stuff that I believe in a lot, and I speak about them with a lot of conviction, which is, I think, what draws people to where I am.
Yeah, because if you really unpack charisma, right, actually sometimes we think of charisma as some of this special magic, special gold dust.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really unpack charisma, right, it's actually the optimum blend of warmth and strength. So if a person has all strength and no warmth, this person is a beast. You kind of feel unsafe around this person. Right. You kind of feel like, this person is all brute force.
Correct.
And no heart. But if a person is all warmth and no strength, you don't trust this person. You kind of feel like this person is, very noir like that. Like, like it's too nice. Like, it's the people pleaser, right? This person doesn't stand on his own 2 feet, right? Simple as that, right? Warmth plus strength.
Yep.
But then the question is, how much warmth, how much strength? Because sometimes too much warmth come across as too people pleasing. Too much strength come across as too a bit of a jerk. Right. So where do you find that balance, right? So how do you find the right balance? Well, so it's really a very, very interesting thing, because I really do see that you are such a people person. You're always there for people, and people feel it. People feel that warmth. But at the same time also you speak with conviction, and therefore you have that strength. Right? But it also seems to me that the strength is something you have to develop. You have to work very hard to develop.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think there's actually a balance, and I believe a lot in code switching, because sometimes you need to read a room. You need to see if people are even ready for your warmth, or are they looking more for your strength. Who's when I enter room, the first thing I ask myself is, who am I going to first say hi to? And it's not so much because I'm looking for a friend or anything, but it's really more of, I know people, or rather in our very Asian context, we're not the kind to initiate a conversation. So I'm not about to go to an event and be silent all the way. And if I'm going to be there, I'm going to be my best self. So I think when I show up as my best self, I show up real and true, so long as I don't overwhelm people with my energy, because that was a tendency in the past. If I can measure that and pace people accordingly, it's like starting a car. You got to warm the engine up before you drive it. It's like going for a run. You got to stretch before you go for a run. So it becomes incremental, the warmth that I bring up. Then I suppose that's just how it goes.
So you speak about it like it's very simple, right? But to many people, like, what do you even mean by reading the room? So that requires a certain level of sensitivity around this. Where did you learn to be so sensitive? Were you always like that growing up?
Was I always sensitive growing up? I suppose I learned how to be sensitive. So across many instances, right? Just fair play for all. I'm not the kid in school who hangs out with the same gender. And I know that's a very sensitive thing these days, and on talking about gender, but I just never got around to hanging out with the guys, right? And for me, it was easier to talk more to my friends who identify as females, and at that point, it's like we could talk feelings. I could talk about things that make me happy, things that make me sad, things that are happening at home, and they understand better than my guy friends could, because my guy friends just not exposed to that kind of language. And so I think over the years, hanging out with more of my female identifying friends, it became easier and easier to talk about my feelings. It became easier to learn about what it meant to be sensitive. And I suppose there was this one incident when I was 14. I was in secondary 2, and I was made like so-called poster boy of the school. And I think it kind of got to my head, right? All the attention. I mean, when your face is plastered all over the school, when you have your juniors coming up to want to literally take photos with you, and to give you presents and say, oh my gosh, you look so good, and like it just got to my head after a while. I'm not gonna lie. And because it's the flooding of attention that I didn't get at home, right? So as it got to my head, I started abandoning relationships. And for me, that wasn't the best thing, but I was called out by a friend, and that moment really woke me up to say, she said, just because you're on our magazines, that your face is in front of the school, does not make you better than any of us. And I was like, ouch. It was like my mini diva status, right? I was like, in my mind, I was like, why would you say that? And so I took a step back, and I asked myself, is this true? And I looked at the way I was, I looked at the things that I was saying, my disposition, the way I was behaving, and I could not have been more disappointed in the person I was becoming. Because the attention has made me numb out all sensitivities towards other people. And instead of being sensitive towards others, I only became sensitive towards myself. And it became a very me kind of thing. So when I was called out on that, it shook me to my core enough to make me say, I don't want any of this anymore. And we call it a need for approval, a need for validation, or a need to belong. But I knew that I'd rather sooner give this up and have my friends back than to continue being like this and have all the fame in the world. So I think that's where, I learned to read other people. Am I saying things that are unintentionally triggering others? Things that, might set people off? Doing things that, are making others feel bad? Because I like telling jokes, but sometimes, the jokes can go a little bit too far. And, I want to be sensitive about that, because not everyone has the same level of humor as I do. And I think there was this one other incident, I think I was with you in Penang. And I have a very deep need for connection, dude. Like, I think you of all should know that. And, what happened was we met with this person, and then, I kept finishing her sentences. And in my mind, all I was thinking was, oh, I'm very connected to this person, because I know what they're about to say. And, then, NLP, right? If I finish their sentences, we're mentally in sync. But I remember it was mentioned that what made it so difficult to allow her to finish her sentence, and to allow people to have the glory and satisfaction of finishing their own sentences. And that was also another highlight for me, not so much of a trigger, but more of a highlight that, you gotta be sensitive and read the room, because when you finish people's sentences, it becomes about you. But when you let them finish the sentences and you be patient, no matter how much they're struggling with it, it becomes about them. And I try my absolute best to always make it about other people, which I think is where the warmth comes from, because people then, they feel more seen and heard in due process.
Wow, yeah. I noticed that it was pretty jarring that you were completing people's sentences, and so that I just...
I'm thankful for that. Don't get me wrong. I'm thankful for that.
Needed to kind of like bring it up to you in a safe space. Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. You talk about diva, right? You have that diva.
Oh yeah.
I think you need a bit of that as well. because the kind of work that you do as a speaker, as a facilitator, the person in the front of the room,
Yep.
you need a bit of that ability to have that showmanship, that ability to turn that on the moment when you need it. And I've seen you doing it. Right? I've seen you galvanize rooms. I've seen you MC events. I've seen you, just bring people together with your presence and your what. So that requires a certain very calibrated ability to turn it on when you need to. That showmanship. So you have that in you, right? It's like many people don't have that in them, right? It's like for you to even have that in you is really an extra weapon in your repertoire. Right. So I think that's not exactly a bad thing.
I learned that actually.
You learned that?
I learned showmanship.
So tell me more about how did you learn that?
So the whole diva thing when I was 14, right? While that gave me that shook me internally quite a fair bit. It did not make me want to give up my dream of becoming an actor. So I still went for acting school through the ages of 14 and 15. And I was taught by local celebs. I was taught by celebs mentees. And, I had so much fun being an actor, or rather training to be an actor. And I suppose that really helped because, I put it this way, ever since I was, 12, I have been the school's, that announcer guy. It's like, oh, good morning school, the announcements for today are as follows and all that, right? Or PE department, all sports leaders are supposed to meet, or this and that, and after, and all that. And it evolved to me leading the school in pledge, in taking our national pledge, right? And over a while, I just became a face known on stage. So I think that's why I became poster boy as well. And through my years in secondary school, I frequently emceed the events, right? I hosted the school, and I remember this very one distinct one that happened. It was a Teachers' Day concert. I was 15. And by then, I had some acting training, and I knew how important it was for crowd engagement. So what happened was one of my seniors was supposed to pull out his amplifier for his electric guitar, but it wasn't working. And the curtains were closed. I was backstage with every one of my teachers, and everyone was just panicking, trying to figure out, which wire goes where, and how do we plug this in, or do we need to tweak this and that. And I could very faintly hear the murmurs of the school past the curtains. Because there's a little slit, right? So I could hear I was like, okay, something's a bit off here. So without any hesitation, I turned on my microphone and I popped my head out the curtains, and I looked at my school. I saw all my schoolmates looking at me. My cohort mates, my seniors, my juniors, all were looking at this one guy who decided to pop his face out of the curtains. And I said, I greeted them, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, distinguished guests, our teachers, the VIPs of today. How are we doing today? And just roared. I was like, okay, that's a good sign. So I stepped out. So there were 4 MCs that day. 2 for the English script and 2 for the Mandarin script. I was the English script one, and my other MCs were backstage, and they did not know. All they were thinking is, what the heck is Shawn doing? What's he doing now? So I got out on stage and divided the school in half. I said, my friends, there is a big line right in the center of all of us here. Everyone who's on my left, you are Sector B. Everyone who's on my right, you are Sector A. Sector A, on the count of 3, I want you to cheer your favorite teacher's name in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, Miss Tan, Miss Chua, Mr. Lim, and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, very good. Sector A, Sector B, your turn. 3, 2, 1, go. And you could see the teachers just laughing and having such a good time. And the students were trying to out-scream each other.
My goodness.
And the school was just in absolute havoc and chaos, but the good kind. The rah-rah kind. I was like, okay, ladies and gentlemen. So I did a bit more engagement for about 10, 15 minutes, just laughing with them, telling jokes, because certain teachers have certain stereotypes and everything. So a bit of stand-up here and there. And next thing I know, I felt a tap on my shoulder. And a little voice goes, Shawn, the amplifier is ready. Ken ready. I said, all right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce to you. Curtains blew open. I ran backstage, and the band started playing. The school went crazy for the band. My seniors were that good. My teacher comes up to me, and I tell you, dude, I was so scared. I was like, I'm going to get in so much trouble. She comes up to me. She touches me here. Shawn, good job. And I was like, oh, okay, some validation there,
What a wonderful story.
And I remember that story very, very clearly. I even have a photo if I can find it for you later. I had these fake glasses going on and suspenders and
suspenders.
So
the image.
The kind of retro look, right? And for me,
that image, my God, I can't unsee that now. Okay.
So that became a very defining moment for me because it just signaled to me that, hey, Shawn, number one, you can do anything you set your mind to. Number 2, for as long as you keep other people in mind, things will go well.
My goodness.
1,200 students, about 80 plus teachers, for as long as I kept them in mind. And that was all I was thinking about was, how do I keep them entertained? How do I keep them engaged? I want the mood to be up. I want them to be happy. This is Teachers' Day concert. I want them to feel excited. I want the teachers to feel the love from the students. How do I do that for them? And so everything that I did, the cheering and all that, was all for them.
So my goodness, so much. So this is so profound, man. On a previous episode, we have our guest Kelvin Kwok, right? He shared a story also as well, and in that story, right, we kind of unpacked that he was really focused on service over status, and for you were focused on service over self. You could have been like, oh my god, like, what am I gonna do now? Oh my god, I'm so self-conscious. Oh, I pop my head out, everyone's looking at me. Oh my god, I'm stage fright, 1,200 people. I just need to say something. I'm all on my own right now. The rest of my MCs are all backstage. They are like probably crawling underneath the tables, right? It's like they're quaking their pants. And then here you are, taking it on. And then you just had the presence of mind for that moment in time, to be present to the moment, present to the opportunity, and just step up to the plate.
There was no fear. I can directly say I was totally uninhibited, and I think it was just so much fun.
Yes,
it was just so much fun.
It was just uninhibited, not because you're out of control, not because you're a loose cannon, but because you were putting service over self.
So I have this saying, right? If I can make someone laugh, and they laugh because of me, I'm fine being laughed at.
So they will laugh through you, not because of you.
Well, through me, I casted myself out of that fear, and I told myself, for as long as this group, they are engaged, they are primed, and the mood is maintained, it doesn't matter how they might talk about me in the future. It's gonna be about them.
That's what I mean by service over self, because at the very meta level, at the highest level, it's not about laughter, it's not about joy, it's not about engagement, it's about service.
Yeah,
it's about what serves the moment in time, right?
Exactly.
If you can help them go from frustrated, impatient, murmuring, negative, to just uplifting that collective energy of the space, right? Just by the little bit, just take it up a notch a little. You have done everyone 1,200 people a great service for the day.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
You saved the event as well, and it's like, and this the whole idea of like dividing the room is like, it seems to me like you already have some idea of gamification. You're already kind of like creating a game between them. Are you always like very, how do I say, you have a gamified mind?
Well, I believe in fun, and as a speaker, as a trainer, as a facilitator, I'm always of the mind of, how do I make learning subconscious? How do I make learning a very unknown thing? I want people to learn without realizing that they're learning, right? And for me, I do that through games. So I build board games, I build a lot of card games, and I play these games during my sessions, because I don't want people to just come in, open the notes right as I talk, and then a bit of discussion here and there, a bit of role play, and then we call it a day. For me, that, while it might serve some use, I'm not going to deny it, it's been a traditional way of doing things, right? But are they going to remember it? And I'm always telling my students, you don't have to remember me, but remember the stuff that you learned today. And I would sooner rather they remember the wisdom that they picked up, not because of me, but because it has a profound impact on them. Which is why when I design my games, when I build my board games, when I get them to play the games that I find, it's always of the mind on, how is this reflective of you as a person, right? And where does this action, where does this, a particular thing show up in your life? And it becomes a reflective process, because I'm always chasing wow, I didn't realize that. So it ever happened, my class was supposed to end at 5, but we unknowingly played till 5:20. And I told my students, okay guys, we really got to stop, because it's so overrunning of your time. It's Friday. I think you guys want to go home. Shawn, now what time? It's 5:20. 5:20? Can stay till 5:45 or not? So I was like, 5:45, you're sure you want to continue? Yeah, we really want to play. So I just let them play. We play, we debrief, we play, we debrief, we play, and we learn. And the fun thing is, some of them have actually connected me on LinkedIn. So, it blossomed into, from teacher and student, to now of a genuine friendship. between two people. And I think that's where it really is for me.
So if it goes back down to the fact that you are really, really all about creating games, fun for people, and you really enliven people's life.
I like shaping the environment
Yeah.
to be more lighthearted, to be less serious, but to still maintain that profound wisdom that needs to be upheld during the session. No stress, chill, but we can still learn a big ton kind of environment. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So okay, that moment when you did what you did, right? I've never heard this story before. I thought that was a very powerful story. It's like a defining moment story. You know, sometimes we a lot of people go through their entire life without actually having even these defining moments. But you had that defining moment. Some people had that defining moments and they kind of buried it and say, it's nothing, it's just a gimmick, it's nothing at all.
Right.
But to me, I think that is a microcosm of you. That is you in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if you were to show a video of your life, right? Let's say if you were to do a video resume or video proposal, like why they should choose you as a speaker, why they should choose you to work for them, right? It's like that be one moment that captured everything. It's like the spirit of service, the ability to gamify and enliven an atmosphere, the ability to channel energy. I think there's something about those skills that people don't actually understand. Energy channeling. Everything in this world is energy. People are frustrated, people are sad, people are depressed, people are lonely, people are whatever. People are feeling all kinds of different emotions on a day-to-day basis in the workplace.
Right.
But they just need something like a band conductor to come in and kind of like conduct the energy and kind of like make sure that everything flows nicely.
Correct.
Like Kevin Kwok talk about alignment, right? So there's something very beautiful about when you are able to channel people's energy and align it to the same direction. And I thought there's another thing that you did that they, besides just filling the space. Obviously they came for the band, they didn't come for you, but sorry to burst your bubble there.
That's true though. That's true.
That's true, right? But the thing is, you stepped up to the plate so beautifully also because of your ability to conduct energy. Have you ever considered that?
Well, in secondary school, I was part of this CCA called NPCC, National Police Cadet Corps, and I have an instructor by the name of Yan Chang. And Yan Chang, he always has this one saying to my squad: if you really want something, you will do whatever it takes to get it done. Because if there's anybody who's going to do it, it's going to be you. And those words still ring true to my mind in this day and age, because a lot of things I realized that in situations where I lift the energy, where I galvanize, where I have to last minute host, or where I interact with people on that impromptu like that, to me it's fallen into my lap somehow. I don't know how and I don't know why, but I know that I'm going to make the damn well best of everything that I can.
I don't think it's accurate to say they fall into your lap. Opportunities are everywhere, but you stepped into the breach. You stepped into the void. Because at that moment in time, what was happening was that there was a void, there was a hold up, there was a technical issue, the event couldn't proceed. And so what happens was that was an opportunity. So what people saw was a breakdown. What you saw was an opportunity. And you took it, not because you are an opportunistic fame seeker, but because you are a service-oriented person. And then your heart of service filled the room. What they didn't see was just your fun. What they didn't see was just your specs and your face, your suspenders. Okay, that image I can't get out of my mind. But what they saw was your heart for service. And I think when you have a heart for service to your words, right, it just flows, it just pours out. You to follow the same analogy of the water, right?
Right.
The water don't have imposter syndrome. The water don't think, do I belong here or not? The water don't think, am I good enough or not? The water don't think, am I worthy enough or not? When there is a space, the water fills that space.
It just does.
It just does.
Right? It just does its thing.
Yeah. And so there's some truth here. It's all coming back.
I think you're making me think of a lot of things. One of the things that's really ringing in my mind now is, I think it's when you said it. I remember one of your keynotes you delivered. You said, it's not about how I want to be the best in the world anymore, but how can I be my best for the world? And, if I knew that at a point in time, come on, put it this way. Stage presence is something that I'm aware that I have because of my training in my acting school, right? And it's something that I practice and I cultivated over the years. So I knew that with that as a strength, And you're right, seeing that as an opportunity. How do I put my strength and use that to serve this opportunity?
But I don't think you actually thought process.
It wasn't super conscious that, like, I have
conscious.
this and then I go and do it. But it's more of like,
exactly,
something needs to be done. Someone needs to do it. I'm going to step up to do it.
So so all your training in acting, right, is preparation.
Yeah.
And brilliance happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Mm.
And first of all, the opportunity to realize that it's an opportunity. And then secondly, just step into it. Right? And then you are not opportunistic. I won't say that, oh yeah, here's a moment to get some fame. No, you were not opportunistic. You were service oriented. And service, the heart of service, right, the people centricity, right, is something that is your North Star. It's something that just pulls you into the moment. Because that moment calls for someone to step up to serve the people.
Yeah.
Because people were lost.
Yeah.
People were lost as to what's happening. People were lost as to whether the electric guitar will get back up again and the band will play again or not. Even the teachers were lost as to how is this event going to happen. You were a situational leader. You were not just a servant leader. You were not just, people often think of MC as a servant. People don't think of MC as a leader. But you step into the leadership role because that's who you are as a person. That is the coming of age moment for you.
Well, that's a very nice thought to have, that, you're right. MCs do lead the event. Right, wow. That's a very profound thought. I never saw it that way.
It's not just an MC. It's Shawn Hoh. Right? So it's not Shawn Hoh the MC. It's Shawn Hoh the person that stood up. What people saw was you. What people saw was you at your brilliant best. What people saw was you at your service best. People felt served by you.
I think that's a very nice sentiment to have, when the mind is not on the self and the mind is purely on the service. The key question then is why, right, or what drives the internal notion, right? I think I have this saying that 100 years on this plane is not enough, and I think that for every moment like that calls for someone to, in the words of Brené Brown, to dare greatly, right? If that moment calls for it and you know that you are the person to do it, then do it. Because it's not just a thing that you're doing, but it probably is at that point in time the best and the right thing to do. So I take it on as a form of, in now on hindsight, right, like a sense of responsibility that I feel like it's the calling for me to go and do it.
Beautiful. Let's just rewind back a little here.
Sure.
And you talk a lot about how you're able to pour your feelings out to your female identifying friends because of what's happening at home.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's one area you want to talk about, and it's perfectly fine if you don't want to talk about it.
I can talk about it.
Tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges growing up.
Well, I'm not sure if this is I don't think it's typical, but I did come from a very dysfunctional family. Absent father figure, mother who works way too hard for her own good, and overall the support systems at home were not as strong as I would have liked them to be. Now that I can say this on hindsight, but as a kid it's more of, why is no one there for me, right? But on hindsight now, it's really understanding more about the support and the affection that I needed from people around. And so for whatever lack of attention that I didn't get at home, I found that in being able to get that attention from other people, which is where I think the ability to learn how to charm and galvanize, that's where it just naturally came in, because you got to find one way or another to get attention, right? So you either have good attention or bad attention. So I figured, why not just be the more favorable form of attention and let people laugh? That's still attention, and there's a feel good factor about it, and people like you, and sounds so vampiric, but you kind of feed off of that a little bit.
Yeah, I get it.
Because you lack that, right? And then where that else is present, you just go and dive right into it.
Yeah. Sometimes our greatest need, our greatest void, right, becomes our greatest strength. Like that which we felt most devoid of, most deprived of, and that we almost feel like we need it so badly, we become great at it, right? I mean, I'm sure you have heard and read so many fairy tale stories of how people grew up in poverty, became ultra successful business people, because what they lack of in terms of security, they were driven by the need for that security, and therefore they understood
Yeah.
the value of money.
Yeah.
Because they understood what it feels like not to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And you understood what it feels like not to have attention. And so, therefore, you have become unconsciously, subconsciously a student of getting that attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you possibly wanted to become an actor. I don't know.
There was a big part of that. I think that's why the whole diva thing came in.
Yep.
Because you finally have what you never had, and
Yep.
I think at the age of 14, when all the chemicals in your brain are on full overload,
Of course.
You don't know how to-
we were once 14, yeah.
you don't know how to manage that.
Yeah.
So when it came in, it just feels like it's like a tsunami of emotions,
Ooh.
and you're just doing your best to figure it out, and you're not realizing that you're pissing people off, but like at the same time, you feel good that you're getting the attention that you never got,
Yep.
and it's like putting a circle where a square should be. Like a circular block where a square hole is. That kind of fills it up, but there's still those gaps. And what's left to fill those gaps are the less kind things, the less than positive things, right? The things like people. I mean, I had a lot of comments. Oh, you're sure you're very arrogant. Sure you're very egoistic. Sure you're very 好脸. So these little itsy bits, and which are then confirmation bias, right? People say that I am, then I think anything, then subconsciously you act like you are, and you fill up what's left of those gaps with the stuff that you don't want to be true, but you just unconsciously become, because you're not getting the right fit of what you need.
So beautiful. Then that also goes a lot to wholehearted leadership. The earlier point you alluded to, right? It's like a lot of leaders are driven by ego, and then the ego that drives them becomes the ego that hampers them.
Yes.
Because the ego, the absolute power corrupts, right? So,
It does.
Like now what we're seeing with Elon Musk's around the guy is so damn rich, and he's able to say things like, I don't give a damn about what you think of me. I don't give a damn about what you guys think of me. I think it's reaching a point of, almost, what's the word?
Feels like it's omnipotence or something like that.
Yeah. Some
Right.
form of omnipotence.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where I have this thing about leaders, right? And I think some leaders tend to go crazy with power. Some leaders tend to become obsessed with power and we always go back to the thing, right? Because you are chasing after the thing that you don't have.
Yep.
Or rather the thing that you fear losing.
Yeah.
Right? When all of a sudden, the people have the power, then the whole thing changes, because suddenly it's not one person calling the shots, it's everyone else calling the shots and telling the leader what needs to be done. And I think when we think of it that way, right, it sounds so negative, but when we think of it that way, right, I think it distorts reality. Which is why when we talk about leadership having a shape, right, and the whole triangle, I actually don't find that it's an inverse triangle either. I find that it needs to be a circle. But what's in the middle is not the leader. What's in the middle is always the people. The leader goes around making sure that everyone is okay. He goes around checking in on everyone. Sometimes he'll go to the middle. Sometimes he'll go amongst the people on the inside. But he's always going to come out and continue circling to make sure that everyone is safe and sound. And when leaders make themselves the center of attention, which is something I was very conscious about not doing. These days when as a next gen business leader take over the family business, my staff, I don't know why they love to announce when I show up to the job site, right? Oh, 頭家來了, boss is here. Don't call me boss. I never like the word boss, because boss indicates that I'm instructing you to do stuff that it's very authoritarian, and I've never been about that. And I think that's one of the biggest things about me, that I do not appreciate authoritarian leadership. I appreciate direct, firm leadership, but I do not enjoy authoritarian, because that just means the voice is only by one person, but everyone else needs to be heard, because there are things that are happening that you're not very aware of, and if you choose to be blind to those things, everyone will suffer. Everyone, especially the leader, will suffer. That's where I'm at with,
Okay, let's talk about second-gen leadership, right? So, besides being a speaker and a trainer and a coach, you're also taking over your mom's security business.
Yes.
First of all, tell us a little bit more about that. Okay, a bit of advertisement space here for you. Tell us a little bit about that business.
So, our family business is called A Force Protection Private Limited. It's been around for about 8 years. But my mom's been around in the industry for about 3 decades now. This will be the 30th year actually. And it started because it was supposed to be an evergreen industry, right? We dissolved the business because my parents split. So there was a whole internal scuffle about the paperwork and everything. So we had to be absorbed by someone else for a bit. And then we eventually stepped out on our own. So I've grown up in this practice, in this line of work for my entire life. And at the age of 16, I became a security officer myself. I've been on shifts in the day, in the night, on the weekends, on the weekdays, on holiday seasons, in off seasons. And I'm telling you, back then when it was like $85 a shift, right, on a weekend, like one weekend's like 85 times $270. That, for a 16-year-old, that's a lot of money. You know, that's part-time money. You know, that's dating money. So, when I stepped into that line, you know, and it just felt very lucrative and everything. So I'm still classified as an officer, though I've moved up to management in the last 3 years. So in the coming year or two, you know, that will be my official takeover. Though Mom's already taken a backseat and acting maybe more as an advisor than anything else. So that's just the gist of the biz. But really, we do our best. I mean, my brothers in the industry, everyone's doing their best. Everyone's trying. But the focus that I have for our agency is very different. Met with a lot of resistance, not gonna lie, when your leader is your mother. There's a few ways you need to tweak the conversations to be like. And, you know, dare I say we have successfully shifted the image? Not yet. But have we pivoted to a direction that I feel is more future ready? We are moving there. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, you said something about that when you were 16 years old, you were security officer.
Yes.
And now you are taking over management. You know, there are a lot of people, you know, there's this American television series called Undercover CEO.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When a CEO actually goes undercover and go and flip burgers in fast food joints or go and clean houses and everything like that. And then they discover a lot of things that are like, oh, shocking, everything like that. But of course, they need these undercover CEOs because that person who is probably the CEO of a fast food chain has never flipped a single burger in his life.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, that coming back to the whole status thing again, right? Some people is like, oh, you know, it's beneath me, you know, to be a security officer because, I mean, with due respect, it is considered one of the lower end kind of like industries in Singapore and occupation in Singapore. Yeah. Very few parents will actually proudly announce to their family members that, hey, my son is a security officer. Right, they usually say, "Hey, my son's a doctor, my son's a lawyer, but not my son's a security officer." Right, so no disrespect, but this is the reality, right? I mean, this is my observation of what's going on. But you have absolutely no qualms, right, about, you know, stepping in to become a security officer. Even nowadays, sometimes you still step into and become put on a uniform and do an overnight shift, right? It's like, has it ever occurred to you, like, you know, you just finished giving a speech in front of a management team in a MNC, and one of the managing directors drive home one day to his condo and he sees you welcoming him in, right, and then say hello, and it's like, what are you doing here?
And everything, right?
It's like, aren't you the speaker? So are you really a speaker or are you a security officer, right? So there's this idea of like, people don't, you know, in Singapore we all have face issues and we have this like, paise, you know, we want people to see us, we don't want to malu, we don't want to be embarrassed, right, to be seen a certain way. But you have absolutely no qualms doing it, and I thought that was extremely remarkable. Tell me about that thought process. Why did you have no qualms at all? So
let's say if a CEO or some top management person drives home and they see me there, hey, aren't you Shawn? Yes, I am. Did you just give a training at our company? Yes, I did. You're also a security guard? Yes, I am. I have zero resistance towards admitting to the fact, because first and foremost, I talk about leadership. I talk about stepping up to the plate. There is nothing more convincing to people than to know that a leader is down on the ground with the people. So that when I tell you things, it's not because I'm telling you from my inference. I'm telling you based on fact and experience. I do the shifts with my guys because I want to know what my team feels. If my clients are proposing for this and that, I'm then better informed, right? To say, I've done the groundwork before. I've worked with the team. We can or we cannot do this. That's where my conviction stands. And over the years, my leadership philosophy has really been about the people on the ground. without the people on the ground, there is no business. You can be the CEO, you can be the COO. You don't have your manpower, you don't have a business. Correct? So
beautiful.
I'm so uninhibited by that. I'm actually fantasizing that I hope that happens one day, because I want people to know that this is an agency that does not have a high horse, does not have an ivory tower. That when you need us, you don't just get my ops manager on the ground, you get me. And that has been my biggest selling point, and the reason why, how my mother has trained me to be like, why her clients are repeated, and how they've seen me grow up and now want to work with me, because they know that she's imparted this value of being present with the officers. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, last weekend I was just at one of my condos. They needed an additional officer to support their event. I was there on the ground. Residents came up to me, "Oh, you knew Yeah, I'm the new officer." I don't need to tell people that I'm the leader. They will eventually find out. I don't need to tell them. But my counsel, my clients, "Wow, Shawn, you specially come down for us today. Yeah, sir, I want to support you. And I'll make sure that the officers are okay and that your event is okay."
Wow.
Wow, thank you so much. And I don't do that for that feeling, but that feeling becomes a byproduct of the actions that I choose to take. And I swear by those moments, because those are the times where I know that, because I always emphasize on customer service, the customer experience. Does not get any better than that. That the boss himself, the leader himself, come down to do the work with everyone else.
So beautiful, so beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about second-gen leadership here.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the times, parents, when they get older, they want to retire, they kind of like want to pass their business to their children.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, a lot of children don't want to do it, because the young people, they have their own dreams, their own careers and everything like that. And so do you feel like you were pressured into taking over, or do you feel like a sense of pressure having to take over, or did you just sort of like say, take it on, bring it on?
Yeah, I don't know if I told you this before, but when I was 15, I did part-time work as a crew with Success Resources. And I saw Peng Joon on stage, I saw Robert Kiyosaki, I saw T. Harv Eker, and I saw all these wonderful speakers. And at the age of 15, I knew I wanted to become a speaker. I don't know how, I don't know why, or I knew why, but I don't know how I'm going to get there, but one day I'm going to end up on a big stage like them. And so for the rest of my years, I dedicated myself to perfecting the craft of professional speaking, public speaking, so and conducting training, right? So when I was told to, when I left the army, I made the very intentional choice, number one, not to go to university, because I didn't know what exactly I wanted to study. And I told myself, I am not about to waste tens of thousands of dollars on something that I don't know if I will like or if I will use. So I said, why don't I try and get some real world experience, then figure it out from there. So I got into corporate finance, and shortly after that, about 10 months into my role, my mom had some serious health issues. She collapsed, and I had to make a call. I had to make the call to step up and support, because at the point in time, she didn't have anybody with her. And if she were to take time to rest and recuperate, someone needed to take over the helm. So I did like what I did when I was 15. I tightened my suspenders. I pulled out my pants, and I said, you know what? Let's do this. So did I always want to be a part of this business? Not really. Because for me, when I start a business, I believe it's something you should be passionate about, something you love. But you can't go around saying, oh, I love the security industry, I love security tech. This doesn't make very much sense to people, right? Sounds a bit wayang also. So I told myself, if not for the love of security, what could I love that will make me want to take over this business? And the answer was my mom. And I had no qualms, because, dude, at the point I was 2 decades plus, there's a legacy that's built there. My mom, you've met her. She's a tough woman. You don't survive in an industry like this without some form of grit. And my role as a son was to make sure that regardless of whatever happens, my mother's legacy will go down as one of the greatest in this industry. I will make sure people remember that this is not Shawn's business. Shawn took over from this lady named Christine. Christine has been the absolute monster in this business. Shawn just happened to learn from her. Again, I don't need to be the main guy, but I knew that I needed a purpose if I was going to serve in this business and do it damn well. So I made my mom the center of everything. Not so much to the point where it becomes an obsession, but more of as a main driver for me. That, God forbid, one day she's gonna go. The legacy that is left behind is not just about how Christine led the security agency, but how my mother took very, very good and intricate care of all her people. A lot of people think that my mom's very naive, think that she's very, ignorant, think that she's too nice. Our longest staff has stayed with her for 25 years. Our oldest staff is in his 80s. None of my staff who have been offered better outside have chosen to leave the company. They've all stayed. And that's what I think makes an A-Force officer, because you know you're taken care of. And you know the culture here is that the management seriously cares for you. And because this management is trained by Christine. So you ask me, was there resistance at the start? Did I always want to be here? My quick answer is always a no. I've always wanted to go about and do other things. I've wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a chef. And all these other things that I really wanted to do. But at the core of it all, I asked myself, what's really important to me? So it's not so much about my mum making me join this industry. I left corporate finance of my own accord. My then CEO also asked me this very important question. Shawn, do you know what you're stepping into or not? Family business, yes, very nice, very lucrative, yes. Good regular salary. But do you know what you're stepping into or not? I know it was the unknown. And I knew my answer was no, I don't know what I'm stepping into. But again, like I said, I put on my pants and I just said, let's walk. Because that's my training. That's how I've always been. In the army, I was a commando. You don't care what's in front of you. You just go. But you go about it in a strategic way. So the path over the last 3 years and even moving forward has not been very smooth. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of unlearning to be done. And there's a lot of, convincing that needs to be done as well. But has it been a very worthwhile journey and fulfilling one? Absolutely, man. 100%.
I'm seeing all the dots connecting, right? It's like you're always stepping up to the plate when the moment calls for it. You're a man for the moment. It's, a lot of people are, they glorify, starting your own business, but you're sort of like taking over your mom's business. So some people may think, it's less glorious, right? It's like you're taking over other people's business. It's handed to you on a plate. And I find it to be extremely disrespectful perspective. Right, because they don't realize the weight on your shoulders, right? Like you said, it's a business 2 to 3 decades in running, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you just take it over and then not make it? Touch wood, right? Like run it to the ground. It weighs
so much
heavily.
anxiety, man.
It weighs heavily on you, right? Yeah. So I think people who actually dismiss people who take over the business, or like, you're just a fool tai, you're just a rich entrepreneur's son and everything like that. They don't really know what they're talking about.
So I want to talk about that for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
There was that sense of imposter syndrome when I took over.
Okay.
And I'm someone who does not believe in imposter syndrome to some extent. Because I think it's always about, imposter syndrome can exist, but it's a matter of whether or not you want to do it. And for me, the why was very clear. But I think what most people don't understand about running a family business, or rather taking over, is the wisdom. Do you know the weight of responsibility that's on your shoulders when you take over a family business? We have over 100 officers. Suddenly, I'm responsible for 0 of them, for just myself, to responsible for 100 of them. So when I do sales, when I do my BD, when I do my marketing, when I do my follow-ups to my clients, these people are always at the forefront of my mind. I'm in sales, and I tell you, Coen, when we sign accounts, the numbers are not small. We have to sign an account that lasts for a year, hopefully, and if all things go well, even more. A 6-figure deal, Coen. It took me about a year or so to master how to negotiate a deal like that. But do you know that it's so much easier to negotiate a 6-figure deal than it is to negotiate salary? Try telling the guy who has watched you grow up since you were 6, Shawn, can get $5 more or not? And you cannot say yes, because you either don't have the power to make the executive decision, or you have to run the numbers, or you know that because the site's not profiting well, so you can't really give him that much. You want to, you cannot. Try telling that to him. You see, cannot. And I swear by this wisdom, because being a next gen leader has taught me a lot about compassion, has taught me a lot about stepping up to the plate, where I am often challenged because of my age. I'm not gonna lie. being 28 in this industry where everyone is easily, or rather all the senior leaders are all in their 50s and 60s, they look at you and say, what would you possibly know? And I have a decade's worth of experience, but they have decades. But one core thing is that I think like a businessman. I do not use my age as a crutch to me. I use that as one of my biggest superpowers, because that just means I can innovate differently, and if where I can innovate better. So the wisdom that you pick up, because the weight of responsibility that's on your shoulders, it forces you to grow in a very exponential way. And it makes you think harder, faster, and more creative than anyone else, because you know what's on your shoulders. You know what's at stake. And when you can take what's at stake extremely seriously, then it's different. I have conversations with my wife Val, Val, about this all the time. I could have been in an MNC, taking a quarterly bonus, getting a 20+ day leave, and then get all these medical benefits. Why am I in an SME running a family business and all that? To me, the money is not the most important thing. My question is, I'm in my 20s. I'm looking forward to fatherhood. Am I growing at a rate to become the man that I need to be or not? To make sure that that person that I want to be is clear, that I am eventually becoming this person, right? I listened to the episode that you said with Kelvin. He said something along the lines of, you want to be like someone, you got to think like them, act like them, and you eventually be like them. And that's so true, man. You got to think, behave, speak like the person you want to be. So I often get this question, Shawn, you step up to the plate at such a young age, take over this business. Not stress, Stress. Very stress. But would I trade this up for anything else in the world? I would not, because opportunities like this, they're not available for everyone. And if anything, I no longer feel like I'm forced to be thankful for this opportunity. I feel like I'm genuinely grateful that I get to learn so much and, impart this level of, dare I say, wisdom to my peers who don't have similar opportunities but stand to learn something from the stuff that I've been through. Yeah.
Wow. That's so beautiful. That's so powerful. I can see you really come alive as you're sharing what you're sharing. For those on YouTube, you can see that Shawn really just come alive. I think his voice also changed as you're talking about that. The conviction, you can really feel, it's palpable. So a lot of second-gen leaders, right? Next-gen leaders, right? Sometimes they want to take the business to the next direction, to the next level. They want to innovate. They want to have more, creative processes and ways of doing things. But of course, sometimes they feel like they're held back by their parents or the old school way of doing things, or because people who have been with the company for a long time will say that, things were like this, why change? Right. So how do you navigate this resistance to change?
So I think a lot of ownership is needed. I think being in this family business, I have three O's that I follow: optimism, objectivity, and ownership. So this falls under the lenses of objectivity and ownership. And I think this question, it's a lot of looking at yourself in the mirror first. You want to change the direction. In Chinese, you get 改革. You want to shake things up a little bit because of industry. You want to be the industry, lead that leads the change. Do you have your foundations right? And I always go back to asking myself this question, because I tell myself, yeah, we can innovate all these things, but these things existed at one point in time for a very good reason. Are those reasons still the same? Did they change? And then that tells me, okay, can or cannot pivot. So example, security industry now moving towards technology. Camera virtual patrol license plate reader analytics reducing headcount just to replace with robots and all that kind of stuff. There is no doubt a lot of resistance to it. But then the question we ask ourselves is, have we mastered the basic operations yet? Can we now, money aside, afford to upgrade in terms of the way we operate, in terms of the way we think about things? So personally in A-Force, the way I shake things up is not so much on implementing the new technology. I like to be in the blue ocean. I like to do things differently. So I focus a lot on training my officers to behave like hotel concierge. Imagine this. You live in a condo, 9 p.m. You had a long day. You're tired. You just want to go home, take off your clothes, step in the warm shower, dry yourself off, change into your PJs. You don't even want to eat. You just want to collapse in the bed. And you're driving to your estate, and the first thing the first person you see is the officer, and he says, "Hi, good evening, welcome home." How would you feel, as opposed to an officer who says, "Hey, where are you going?" It's a very different vibe. So, shaking that up in Air Force, it was a challenge for me. My mom was actually not super on board with it. She says it's a good direction. I love it. Very hard to do. You try, lor. I try. As of to date, I have 3 officers who are former hotel concierges, and I place them very strategically where there are lots of people around them. So whoever they interact with, it rubs off. The behavior rubs off. I don't even need to train. I just let it happen. And I receive compliments saying that, oh, your officers are very friendly, they're very smiley. The best feedback that I can get is when my clients tell me your officers are too friendly. That's when I know, okay, we hit the mark already. Now time to tarik back already. I don't need to push them, I need to, okay, time to hold the leash a little bit more. So for me, it's like, it's that differentiation, right? When you want to do it, make sure you know the basics first. Know your foundations, get things right. Then ask yourself, can change or not? Because they exist for a reason. And I think our generation likes to do things differently, and we like to do things our way. The key question is this. You need to ask yourself, is what you're doing for the sake of something better, or for the sake of just shaking things up? Because you want a name for yourself.
Ooh.
That's a very clear distinction I think a lot of people need to have, whether it's for the self or for the greater good.
Again, it's the same theme. Is like, is it based on self or is it based on service? And you're really all about service, and I can see that. And it's about giving the customers a great experience, a great user experience. I think that now AI has replaced so many jobs, right? AI has done so many things. AI has replaced the way we think with large language modeling. AI has even created videos, like lifelike videos. I recently saw a video of Albert Einstein giving a TED Talk. Right.
That's a good one.
That's a good one, right? That's a good one, right? It's like, we can create AI create a video like that. What else can you not create?
Can we make the picture of that for this podcast?
Yeah, but I mean, besides that, right? It's like, but all these are all content. But what people really want is context. What people really want is experience.
Yes.
Experience is something that we still need the human connection, the human touch. And so what you're actually offering, right, is an experience, not just a service.
I never sell just the service, because anyone can sell the service. You could, if you had $500,000, you could start an agency and sell the service. No problem. What's difficult is when you have to move people and change the way they, or rather help them to enhance the way that their behavioral patterns are like, because it's the one thing that they've known and they've been in the line for the last 10, 20 years, So how do you help them to shift away from that into something else? And I think what's beautiful about this whole thing is knowing that growth, like things like growth, development, and what we call the growth mindset, right? It's not limited for the people of this generation. It's available for everybody. I have officers who are in their 70s learning how to use tablets, mobile devices, computers, the new systems, and I have officers of the same age, same caliber, refuse to learn, so tech is AI, whatever you call it, right? It's here to complement the way we do things, but if we so much have the resistance, you will eventually bomb out. And I think that's a very unfortunate thing, because that little bit of effort to learn and that sense of grit to say this might be difficult now, but I will master this eventually. I think it's a very beautiful thing when people are able to shift and transit, into that next stage because they want to, not because they have to.
So beautiful, so beautiful. We're almost coming to the end of the podcast. It's been such a wonderful hour speaking with you, Shawn. And let's
time flies.
Usually we end our podcast with a few quick fire questions. Right?
Let's do this.
So are you ready for the quick fire questions?
I'm gonna step up to the plate and say yes.
Yes, never faced you before, right?
Never.
So, first question: what's the most powerful question you have ever been asked before?
Powerful question. How are you the way you are?
Wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful question.
It was asked to me by a couple of friends at an event who noticed that I had undeniably strong energy. And they were like, Shawn, how are you not exhausted? How are you the way you are? Do you know what's my direct answer? I don't know. And I look back at it now and I think I have an answer, and it's really helped me to accept myself more for who I am because I have a zest for life. I said before this once, I'll say it 1,000 times again. 100 years on this plane is not enough. I'm not about to waste a single day. And I think that when you have a zest for life, when you don't let things get in your way to beat you down or beat you up, life happens then for you, not to you anymore.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Who is a mentor or supporter who has made the biggest difference in your life besides your mom?
That's another question that's very difficult to answer. I've plenty of mentors who've seen me through the years. There are figures that are in my mind, but I would say one of the very first few who have played a genuine impact on me was you.
Oh,
You saw me when no one else wanted to see me. When I was 24 and I went around asking, how do I become a professional speaker? Everyone gave me the layman, set up a Accra business, start your business profile and everything. And I'm like, that's not what I mean. How do I develop the expertise of becoming a speaker? And I remember we had a 3-week long conversation, and I was on my gut duty that for all the night shifts that I was talking to you, right? And we talked for like 2-3 hours on point on end. And when you finally proposed, for me to go under your tutelage, I was like, damn, someone finally sees me. And I don't think any of who I am today, or rather a lot of who I am today, would have happened had we not have had those conversations, had we not have had those, have we not had that moment when you decided to take a chance on me, which I'm very, very and eternally grateful for that gamble, which I hope has served and proved that as an ROI in many ways, 1 and 1.
thank you. It's beyond ROI. It's also transformed me in many unspeakable and unseen ways as well. And I think we're only just starting. There's a lot more impact we can make. There's a lot more impact we can make in the world. What's one of the most courageous things you have done in your life that's made the biggest difference?
I think it's always about intentionally stepping away from what I know.
Ooh, wow.
When I was in secondary school, I had the opportunity to go to Polytechnic 1 year earlier than a lot of my peers because I did well my papers, right? All of us had the opportunity. I just happened to be one of those who did a bit better. And there are 5 polytechnics in Singapore. I chose to go to the one that no one else wanted to go to. My sister looked at my selection choice and said, "Shawn, you see, are you crazy? None of your friends are there." I was like, yes, that is precisely why I want to go there. I want to start afresh. When I left the army, when I was in the army, I made a very intentional choice to avoid going to OCS. I was selected and favoured, but I did my best to get out of it because I wanted to know what it was like to be one of the guys, to be a soldier, not just the leader, and how to lead as a man instead of leading because you have the title and status, but how do you lead when you don't have anything with you? I made a very intentional choice not to go to university. I go to what we call the University of Life. Right? I would sooner much rather learn from the streets and pick up the wisdom that I have. I believe a lot more in EQ than IQ. And, again, very intentional choice. Questioned by a lot of people, especially the old folks. But I swear by that decision because that has shaped me a lot in more ways than one. It has helped me step up to become a better partner, a better husband, a better son, a better brother, a better uncle, a better person for those who are in my immediate circle. Last year, I made a very executive decision after 3 burnouts through the year to pivot my own company's business model to say, you know what, I'm not going to work so hard on this thing anymore, not because I don't love it, but because I love myself more. And I tell you, when things are going well, to close it down and to move away from it, it is a very gut-wrenching thing to do. It's a breakup you never want to happen. And was there a feeling of loss and emptiness for a while? There was. But was there a sense of pride that followed through like I felt for all those other things that I did? There was. Because I knew that I'm doing this for me. And it's in my best interest that I'm making these choices. So the intentional stepping away from things. Yeah. One of the hardest things to do, but I recommend it for everyone.
Wow, that's so so much to unpack even there. even the last question.
Season 3, y'all.
Yeah, I think we need to get back on another episode, man. It's like thank you very much, Shawn. It's like if our listeners at home would like to find out more about what you do besides your A-Force company as well as what you do also as a speaker, trainer, and a coach, where can they find you?
You can look up for me on LinkedIn. I'm there a lot, or rather, I'm back on LinkedIn. Because when things get crazy, my activity takes a little dip, but thus I still post fairly frequently, and I talk a lot about life, leadership, and leaving a legacy behind. How do we then navigate life as the next gen? How do we have a sense of ownership, optimism, and objectivity in the things that we do? And yeah, that's essentially my message to share. Yeah.
Thank you, Shawn, for being on the Wholehearted Leadership Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Coen. It was a great pleasure to be here.